guess that's on.
Okay, we ready? Today is March 1st, 2014. We're at the home of Debbie Myers, daughter of Edward Taylor, who will be interviewing today. Also with us is Mark Engling, who's from the Veteran History Program, Dorothy Taylor, Edward's wife, and Debbie Myers' daughter, and I'm Gail Smith, representing Voice of a Vet, Veterans Task Force in Hoosick Falls. What's your birth date, Edward?
4/10/26.
And what war and branch of the service were you in?
I was in U.S. Navy Reserve. I was 17 years old. And the Navy, Roosevelt said at 17 you could go aboard ship for duration. So that's how I got that. I went to Sampson, New York. When I got through there, we went to Massachusetts, Bethlehem Steel, and I see these carriers all lined up. They had keels for 7 of them. And the first one that was there was Ticonderoga. And so after boot camp, and we got there, they asked us what ship we wanted. And he says, you go down on the beach there and you pick out the destroyer you want to go on. And I said, I don't want no destroyer. He said, well, what do you want? I said, carrier. You don't want a carrier. I said, yeah, I do. And they said, well, try Ticonderoga. I went over there and they said, no, we're not taking any. So I see Hancock, so I put Hancock and went on that. I run into 2 fellas when I went on deck, and they come up and says, you interested in getting this ship? I said, yeah. He says, well, we're looking for firemen. And I said, yeah, I'm a fireman. I was with the fire department. And he says, well, these are boilers. And I said, oh, okay. So he said, what do you know about them? I said, well, you shovel coal in it and pull it back and shovel more coal in. And he said, only thing is, we got oil. I said, what's the difference? They both eat. So that's what we did. So we went down to fire room and looked that all over. And he was, showing me things. And when we come back up, the officer come over, he says, what do you want to do? And I says, I just soon be a fireman. And he says, I don't know, in the fire room. Well, you're pretty young. I said, well, I know how to do it. He said, how do you know that? And I said, well, I went with my grandfather. He run a boiler on Water Street to make gas. That's what they was doing. So he says, well, this here is, these ships don't have coal. And I says, well, they got oil. I said, what's the difference? That burned just like coal. So I got that. Well, then we go down to fire room and look around and look at everything. Well, then they commissioned a ship. So when they commissioned the ship, they said, you're a plank owner now. You'll get a piece of plank from this thing. And I said, well, what do I want with that? But anyway, I got that years afterward. But then we went our shakedown, we come back, and they give us 7-day leaves. We went for that and come back. So then they took all the watches you had. If you have a watch, you had to turn it in. They got it off the ship, and they magnetized the ship. And I didn't understand what it was all wrapped up with wire. But then I found out afterwards why they did it. A mine would come up, and then when it got close to the ship, it would go away. And then the Marines would blow them up. And that's what they did during the war, why they did that. But from there, when I got through boots, and got on that, and then we went to battle. Went out to Hawaii and then from there. Halsey went out with us. He says, boy, you guys got a lot to learn.
And who was that?
Halsey. He was in charge of the fleets.
So what was your rank?
My rank, I was fireman, second class,
And where did you serve specifically?
in the Pacific.
And were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted. Roosevelt said that kids 17 could go combat.
And where were you living at the time?
I was living in Elmar, New York, Elmar Heights.
Why did you join the service?
Well, my mother and father got divorced, and my dad told me that I had to go somewhere else, so I went in the Navy.
And recalling your first days in the service, what did it feel like?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Through boot camp and that, some of the stuff you got. And a lot of guys, they would holler because they have to take a shower every day. I think I took two. I liked it.
So tell us a little bit about your boot camp experience.
In boot camp, well, there was a lot of running and marching and stuff like that. You get tired out, but it was really nice. You didn't have, the guys didn't, yell at you. You did what you want, and go to your barracks and go to the drill hall. And that was in Sampson, and it was cold, very cold.
So what do you remember about your instructors?
And boot camp.
Boot camp, yeah.
Well, when you got a structure that's telling you what to do, you just don't want to do it. But I never got in any trouble, but I got close to it.
So you didn't have any trouble getting through boot camp?
No.
Which war or wars did you serve in?
Pacific, the war, World War II, in the Pacific, and the USS Hancock. And that was the first ship to be launched. And we didn't know it at the time, but the boilers were marked Ticonderoga. I never heard of a boiler from Ticonderoga. But later I found out that they had changed the ships due to the Hancock, wanting the Hancock there. Roosevelt told them just build it up. So the keel of it was Ticonderoga.
Where exactly did you go?
In the Pacific?
Yeah.
Well, from our first, let's see, we went to Hawaii. Halsey passed the ship, but he says, I don't think you're going to do very good. You guys got a lot to learn. But we went out, and when we got to Philippines, the skipper had us on a flight deck, and a couple of Japs come down after us, and we never had to go inspection again after that in the war zone. But we was in all the gauges out there. The Philippines, Okinawa, Iwo Jima.
So what was it like being out there?
Well, it was a life where you did what you had to do. Well, when you're down below, very seldom you can get to top side when you want it. But I didn't like being down there, and so I'd go through compartments. I'd get a different color shirt, and then go up on the flight deck and look for them guys, and then mingle with them. Where are you? What? Oh, I was up here, and then I get back. And well, I told one of the guys afterward. He said, "I ever got you. You've been a break." I watched them launch planes and fuel planes, and had a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Grew up there.
Now, you've told us a little bit about your assignment. Do you want to elaborate any more on that?
Oh, I was in charge of fire room a few times. In combat, you kind of, it didn't bother me, but a lot of guys kind of freaked out. They wanted to get out. But being down below the deck, it never bothered me a bit. I thought, you're a coward, try and whine and get out of the B division, and number 2 fire room. But I enjoyed it. I didn't jump up and down, but I did my job.
Well, and you had that background too.
Yeah, and you're always doing different speeds, and you got to keep the boilers up, keep the water up. Mm-hmm. We had a good crew on my watch.
Did you see any combat?
Oh yeah. Actually see it. When you're below deck, you very seldom you go topside. Only when it's safe. That's why I got somebody else's shirt that was going up there to see what was going on. I was up there when we were refueling, and the ship to the refueling, the jacks come down on us, and they when they broke off, they threw the oil on that. I forgot the name of the ship now, but it caught a fire. We almost run over it, but we didn't get no damage from the deal.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
In my unit, we didn't have any casualties in ours that I know of. There's a lot of guys that quit being down there. They couldn't be, you're locked right in, and it never bothered me. You're way down the bottom of this ship. It never bothered me any.
And what are a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Oh, yeah, no cover. I went up to relieve the guy on smoke watch, and there was a TBN coming in. They flagged it off, and he come back, and it went around again. They flagged it, and when they flagged it then, he says that they're closing the line, so I went down to get in the line. When I got down there, we had an explosion, and one of the doors hit me on the foot, and they sent me to sick bay. I told them to call the fire room, tell them I was down there, hurt my foot. And when I went down, they didn't know. They thought I was killed. I didn't know. I'm alive. I was in sick bay, so they checked it out. But they never called the fire room to tell them that I was in there. I know I made a lot of liberties and stuff like that, when we could, but just running around. Went to San Diego, we went to Mexico, and we got a little trouble down there because a couple of guys robbed us. Got in a fight, and the shore patrol got in, took us back to the ship and told us to stay on it. When the worst part was when the war was over, we headed for San Diego, and the skipper told us that San Diego was having a parade for the Hancock sailors, and we was all ready to get in that. But then they called all the reserves. The skipper called them up. We went up there, and he says that you got to get off the ship. I don't want no reserves on the ship. He said, get your gear, and there's a train that'll take you to West Coast for getting out. That's what they did. But we never got in a parade. He said, it's only for sailors.
How'd you feel about that?
Well, we felt hurt, They used us for the war, but we wasn't good enough to be in the parade because we wasn't in the active Navy. We was in Naval Reserve.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Well, yeah, I got, I don't know what the combat stuff, 7 stars. When I come home, usually in their suit, and when I come home in the neighborhood, even my dad says, "Where'd you get the medals?" After 5 or 10 cents or more.
But how did you
Then
earn
I
them?
didn't wear them anymore.
How did you earn them?
In the battles you were. Like Okinawa, Iwo Jima, French Indochina. I think we was in 7 battles.
There was a major fire on the Hancock. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, yeah, we got, when that plane blew up, it blew a hole in the deck, and then a lot of the fellas, they put them in bags, and then they have bury them at sea. That kind of gets to you. And then when they put them out, some of them floated, so the Marines are on a fantail and they shoot holes in them so they sink. I guess they said they put something in it to weigh it down. A shell, I think that's what they said. But that was kind of, hard to. The actual guys that come up missing, I didn't know them. It was mostly air groups. Air groups are on the ship maybe a month, and then new groups come on.
So generally speaking, just tell me about your life in the service.
Well, I liked it, but I couldn't stay in because I didn't have a high school education. Only went to 8th grade. The Navy wouldn't take you. It was in the Navy Reserve. Right after Navy Reserve, when the ship went in, they just kicked you back to your reserve stations. And then we went out for maneuvers on the Great Lakes and like that. But then I finally got out.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
I would write to them, but I've seen the letters. There was nothing on them. They cut it all out. Anything I put in there, it was censored. And they cut it out. They didn't know where I was. In fact, when I come home, I went over to see my dad in the work. When I went in, the guy said, "Hey, where'd you get the medal?" 5 and 10. I took off my clothes in, civilian clothes on. They never said, what it was like or nothing. Well, my son's in, he didn't get back home, and all that stuff. But I did. That's the only medal I got to combat.
What was the food like?
Well, sometimes it was same thing all the time. They had that, I can't steer it, some kind of soup. You get whatever they carry. Well, one thing with that, the Hancock church company, for the first year we ate pretty good because they took care of us. They sold enough bombs to build it and a year's provision. So we was pretty good then. And after that, you got a lot of spam and stuff like that.
Did you have plenty of supplies on the ship?
Yeah, we never went hungry. You had a lot of soup. They had that, what they call it, shit on a shingle. Yeah, I like that.
You like that?
Yeah, that was good. I went for a second on that.
And tell us about the pressure, the stress that you experienced.
It didn't bother me a lot. A lot of guys flake out when they go on zebra, but it never bothered me any. You're locked right in that room. You can't get out.
Was there anything special that you did for good luck?
For good luck. To get through it all. We had to, when we go on liberties, they'd all go out and they'd get a bottle and mark it. And each guy would drink down to that mark. Some guys went over it. I couldn't go over it. I wouldn't drink that much.
That kind of leads into the next question. How did people entertain themselves?
Well, they had a movie once in a while. It was saying, I remember once we didn't, Lady Goff, I didn't know. I forgot where it was, but they had bombs on the hangar deck, and we were sitting on them watching a movie. And a couple of Zeros come in and dropped bombs. They hit a couple ships. But then we went down, put the boilers back together. We was cleaning them out and got out of that Elto and back to sea. But that was kind of scary.
What did you do when you were on leave?
Well, never got in real trouble, but we did a lot of crazy things.
Like what?
Drinking. Went to Mexico and we got robbed. Got in a fight. I had a chihuahua under my coat. They caught me with that. Shore patrol took us back to our ship.
And do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual event?
That was unusual. She didn't get the brig.
Ed, tell us about the incident in Okinawa about fire on the ship.
Well, Okinawa was, we had just launched our planes, and the Franklin was on in the same task force, and they told Franklin that some bogies were coming in, and they didn't to dump the planes. If they come on there to hit us, they get all the planes thrown over, get them out of the way. But they didn't do nothing. They launched one plane, and the Jap come in and made his bomb and drop and one right in front of us. They couldn't shoot at him because they hit other planes. But she blew up and blew up and blew up. Yeah, it come out she was the most damaged carrier out there, but it was her own planes that blew her all apart. The skipper didn't throw them over the side. Our skipper, a lot of times, when they come in and they couldn't unload the plane, they just dump them over because we had a good supply line. We used to have to go to Pearl to get planes, but the baby tops would bring planes out to us, so we always had any planes.
Do you have any photographs from your time in the service, Ed?
No, we didn't. We couldn't take pictures. But some guys got it. There was a picture. I've seen some actual pictures they took, but we didn't have no cameras or nothing.
But you've got some yearbooks you can look back at.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think of the officers and fellow soldiers?
It was all right. None of them ever bothered me. Some of them, one thing they did, I always put on a pair of colored socks. And when you go on Liberty, hey, you gotta go get black. Black. They take me off of Liberty.
They took you off of Liberty because of the color of your socks?
Oh yeah. You had to be dressed in cold.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No. No.
Already told us about the day your service ended. What did you do in the days and weeks after?
After I got
After
out.
the service, yeah.
Well, I went job hunting. I worked at Thatcher's before I went. I went down there. they didn't pay much, so then I went to American Bridge. American Bridge helped build them 7 carriers. They built the compartments for them.
One of the ones you were on?
And yeah, and I didn't know that until afterwards. But it was interesting. And a lot of guys don't believe it. But the bridge works had 2 carriers they didn't build, and they had the beams and stuff for them. And Quincy Maston wasn't going to build them, the last 2 carriers. So a lot of the guys bought them the I-beams for the under the flight deck for their cellars. I think it's $185, and then the bridge works would set it for them. A lot of them got that. But in our fire station up there, the floor is laid in that. I look at it, that's part of a carrier. They don't believe me, but I look at it, I can see that they had holes in them where pipes and stuff. So I pointed out to them, but a lot of them. There's one guy there, he worked there, and he don't pay no attention.
So you had a much greater appreciation for the work you did than a lot of those guys.
Yeah. I never got scared down being in the fire room until after I went aboard one of, I think it was Yorktown. When I got on the fire room, and I'm thinking, boy, this is the bottom of the ship. How do I get away with that? And you're locked in there. You know. Well, when they lock you down, they lock you down. A couple of times we got smoke coming down, and once in a while, some of the guys got burnt. Plane would blow up, and then the air would pick up the flame, throw it down. And they'd have their shirts off down there, but when you're in battle, I made them put their shirts on and put their headgear on, so they didn't get burned. We got none of us ever got burned, I guess. I know of in the fire room, but I've heard where some have.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
Not really. Just the guys from the fire room, a couple of them. There's a fellow from Pennsylvania that I got to know.
And you talked about the reunion. How many years have you been attending the reunion?
Well, oh boy, 20 years, I guess.
How's it feel to go back?
Oh, nice. The only is, this last reunion, there's only 3 guys that I knew that was on the ship when I was on it. And then the other guys were on it in Korea and that. More or less, they have the reunion now. First, the guys was on it when I was. There's not many of us still alive, or either that or don't go. The guy that formed it, I haven't seen him in the last 2 reunions, or 3. He hadn't been there.
Did you join a veterans organization when you came back?
American Legion, BFW. I don't go to all their functions, so.
What about when you first returned? Were you more active in them then?
No.
And what about your transition back home?
I didn't have no problem with it. Francis, no.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
No, I don't know. It didn't bother me like a lot of guys couldn't handle it when they got back. And they did crazy things. It didn't bother me much. But then when I come home, my father told me I had to get out. So I married my neighbor's daughter, my wife, and we got along. We got 4 children. We have a good life together. I always tell her I looked up the road and I said, hey, she's got a job. And then she quit her job. What did you quit your job for? Because you got me pregnant. Oh.
So how many years were you in the service?
I think it was 2.5 years in actual. But I think the Navy would handle me real good from just 17 years old. Let me go in the fighter room and do things that I wanted to do. I would like to do shot at guns, and but you had to go to school for that. One thing I did do going pro was I went to their school for fighting fires, and boy, that there was quite a thing. Like them carbon or fire extinguishers, pull the pin, throw the whole thing in. I never knew they did that, but that's the way they taught you. Because you get down in there and you kill yourself. 2 flights of stairs to get into the boiler room. But we never had no real accident in it. One time I got on duty, there was refueling, and the fella shut off the wrong valve and my boilers went out. Hey, whoa, what's the matter here? I let him back off again. The engineer officer come down and he says, oh, they said you blew your boilers. I said, well, they shut the wrong one. Well, you got a secure one. I said, no, they're already. So he says, well, I said secure, and I said, well, then you're in charge. I went up and sat on the top. The engineer officer, he shouldn't have done that to you. If you got him back, he should have left it.
Well, thank you, Ed, for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, it was fun. I got up to 2nd class, boiler, and I wanted to stay in then, but I didn't have a high school education. In Ward, I guess they take everybody. But I had a good life, good wife, good kids.
Tell us about
Okinawa?
Yeah. Is it on?
Well, Okinawa, we was, them fellas went in, and they didn't lose anybody. They got in there pretty good. And then, but the fleet was out. We were 30, 40 miles out, but the suicide planes after us. But anyway, they, after they settled down and got running, these guys said, you guys didn't do nothing, you were out there. And she said, well, in Okinawa, you guys had a party and we had to fight the war, you're talking with them. But when they went to the south end of the island, that's when a lot of them got clobbered, when they put up the flag and stuff. But it was quite a battle. But I don't know, every war is different, but that one there seemed to be, it was the last. Then we cruised around Japan, and that's when they dropped that atomic bomb, and we got to fall out, and Okinawa got to fall out of that. That's about it, I guess. Well, thank you.